Has anyone else in their life felt like branding is just a huge monster that you don't know how to conquer? Oh my gosh, I have felt like that so often. When I was first starting out, I think I spent about 3 months trying to figure out my brand before I even started painting. And let me tell you, it was such a waste of time because I ended up developing a whole brand that I never use. And that's because I am of the firm belief that your brand will naturally show itself when you get yourself into a flow state, when you let yourself create what matters to you, and then you take a step back, you look at the work and you ask yourself what this work means. Branding doesn't have to be something where you put your flag in the ground and you say, this is where I'm going to be forever. Instead, it can be something that you allow to naturally occur over time. And so today I'm going to be answering a question from one of you guys about what ideas to pursue first. And it also has the idea of, like, how do I present my work in a way that people will understand and value? And for me, when I think about the idea of how do I present myself in a way that people understand and value, for me that says one word, and that word is branding. So today we're going to be talking about how to brand in a way that feels very, very natural for you as an artist so that you're not stuck in thinking mode, that you can get right into working and right into showing your work in a way that feels very, very enriching and valuable for you. When I was first starting out, I heard frequently that you should create anything and everything that you want, but only visibly show one style that you're creating. Another area I saw this in is I recently invested in a course to help online sales. And one of the things they mentioned to do is to go online to your shop and deactivate every single listing that is not fully cohesive with your one message. And there's some pros and cons to this, right? Because the pro is you want your offer to be clear. You want it to be very obvious at a glance what you offer to someone so that they know if it's a good fit for them. The problem I see that comes in with this when you're an artist is art is very personal. Every single piece that you create is very personal. So for instance, when I found myself doing this, deactivating pieces that I thought didn't fit my current style, I would sometimes get messages from some of my followers saying, hey, do you still have this one piece? I don't see it listed on your site anymore. Or hey, I was just thinking about this one thing that you showed this one time, but I don't see it there anymore. And I found this very interesting because I think that the way that people interact with art could be very different than the regular product-based business owner, because the person who was running this course, it would make sense to only want to show things that fit within that certain niche. But a pitfall that artists can sometimes fall into is not allowing themselves to fully explore all of their creative tastes and ideas because they feel the need to package and present themselves before they're fully ready. You're not fully ready to niche down yet, but you feel the pressure to show up as that, and so you end up filtering out a lot of the ideas that excite you because you don't want to confuse your audience. But something that I think artists can sometimes forget, myself included, is that at the end of the day, we are our brand. So it's kind of hard to take aspects of our practice out and away from the public without also denying a certain part of our expression, right? One of the artists that I follow here on YouTube is Tim Packer. I really like his videos for educating about art business and such. And one of the things that he mentions is that you should always show all of the art that you make, and it'll seem messy at first, but it's a very crucial part to your journey in growing as an artist to fully taste the world as you see it, to fully enjoy the creation process. Because if you allow yourself to niche down too early, only show one type of work too early, pursue one idea too early, then you run the risk of building a business that you don't enjoy at the end of the day. I think that we also don't allow ourselves enough flexibility to grow and change. Because after all, how are you supposed to know which area of your practice resonates with people if you don't allow them to see it? So it might feel a little messy to show up with every single piece that you have right now, but we have to remember that art exists to connect with people. It's not the best solution for artists to treat it as a business where you only ever show things for a very thought out reason, because a lot of times the people investing in artwork are not the people looking for a solution. They're looking for connection. And so you have to show up with the pieces that you create when you feel the most connected to, and then you have to show it off as it exists and just kind of see what happens. Another aspect of sharing your work publicly often is I just really love creating with the public in mind. I love to be able to work collaboratively that way. I like to show up with my work, see what kind of response it's getting, and then I can take what they're excited about when I see them interacting with it in real life and take it back to my studio and see how much farther can I push this? What other conversations can be had with this artwork? I think it's really important to understand your art brand as yourself, not your artwork as secondary to yourself. It's not like you're making something for other people or you're making something and then your art is the thing that you sell, but rather you are the brand. You are what you are presenting to other people. Something that I like to do to kind of shape your brand, if you are feeling like, oh, what if I'm coming across not as very cohesive, is try to think of yourself as a person, right? You have the facts and opinions, the opinions that you hold, right, at the top of the funnel, and then you have your beliefs, and then you have your values. As you start to get narrower down into that funnel, those pieces towards the bottom, the foundation of who you are, becomes more difficult to change. There are certain things that you value as a human that if someone, it would almost be impossible for someone to change these values about yourself. Like, I value honesty, integrity, and transparency. It'd be very hard for someone to convince me that being transparent isn't the best thing to do, because that's just how I live my life. But my opinions up here, those are things that can be changed. So if I have the opinion that my cat is the cutest in the world, just kidding, you can't change that. If I have the opinion that I really like a certain kind of mug and someone comes up to me and they're like, actually that mug is not eco-friendly, it's not this, it's not that, and they actually explain why that mug might not be the best and propose a new one, then I might be open to changing my mind about that because that's just an opinion. But your values are things that don't change. So what I like to do is I like to think of my art brand in alignment with my values, so that no matter what kind of art I make, it all comes back to who I am and what my values are. For instance, my Small Joys brand, that is a very, very core belief of mine, that joy does not have to be big to be impactful, that joy is all around us and that sometimes we can just forget to look for it. And I don't see that ever changing about what I believe in the world. This video is sponsored by the Small Joys Club. I think that you would really like it. When you join the Small Joys Club, you get an art print and a letter from me every single month to celebrate the small joys of life. And I just think that you would like it, okay? Okay, yeah. Cool. Join the Small Joys Club. And so when you're trying to build your art brand, sometimes it might be helpful to ask yourself, what is something unwavering and unshakable that I believe that I would love to talk about for years and years and years? And it's okay if at first this is something that changes a little bit. When I first launched my Small Joys brand, it wasn't a decision that I made, it was me just talking about the things that I valued most. So I first started talking about how at that point in my life, I needed more breathing room. I had just quit my job, I had very flighty ideas and very flighty thoughts, and I just needed a time to step back and to breathe. And if I go back into my files, the very first title for this collection was actually called Pleasures of Life, which if you think about it, is very similar to the small joys of life. And so sometimes I feel like if you follow your most basic value system, your most basic values about what drives you as a person, you will naturally stumble upon what you will refine to be your brand at the end of the day, something that you are so excited to show up and talk about all the time. Another thing with branding that can make it easy if you follow your values and your alignment, right, is that no matter what kind of work that I make, I naturally will always just kind of make it in this way. So if I start painting a different subject matter, I can still pull that subject matter and relate it back to my core idea, my core value about the small joys. And the more that you talk about it, the more that you show up and practice rehearsing, showing up as this person who does insert thing, the more it will get refined. So the first tagline that I had for my Small Joys was, joy doesn't have to be big to be impactful. And while that is very like on the nose about what I want to do, it's also a bit wordy. And so I eventually just kept toning that down into just small joys. What I like to do is to insert a single sentence about the small joys into anything that I do on Instagram or in person. And that way, anytime someone thinks about small joys, they'll think about me too. And that's sort of what branding is. You want to take those two ideas and rub them together and be like, hey, this is who I am. These are things that you see out there in the world all the time, and now it's going to make you think of me as well. Branding is about visibility that way. For me, I don't like to force branding to happen all at once. I like to allow branding to happen when it's most natural, and I think that you'll just feel that when it happens, that you won't need to say, okay, I'm putting my flag in the ground about what I am going to do about my branding. Instead, you can just allow it to be something that develops over time. Sometimes I even call this a mini brand. So like over the course of a week, you might even be like, okay, if I'm gonna work on my messaging and my branding, I'm going to pitch myself in my Instagram caption, and I'm just gonna keep on pitching myself in my Instagram caption. It's kind of like, my name is Jen. My name is Jen Carmiel, and I am a figure painter. Also been really loving florals lately. My name is Jen, and I am an artist and My name is Jen Carmiel, and I am an artist and a painter. Hi, I'm Jen. I'm an artist and a creative professional. I just like that term, so I'm gonna start using it. Rehearsing how to show up, rehearsing your offer, rehearsing how you're going to connect with people. And I believe if you start from your core values, you will naturally just discover that on your own over time. It doesn't have to be something that you force. It can just be something that naturally occurs. I'm really curious to hear from you what values are most important to you when it comes to creating the work that you do. Comment below what your unshakable, unwavering belief is about the world, because artists at the end of the day, we are translators of the world. That's why people invest in us, because we help enrich life by showing people our perspective, by showing them another way to see and view that world. It feels like everyone's always looking for meaning about why we're here. I'm very curious to hear what your biggest why is. So the first thing that I think about when I think about, well, I have to get my branding and messaging right, I have to think about how to present my work in only one kind of work so that people understand what I do. In my opinion, this whole I have to get my messaging and packaging right first is kind of putting the cart before the horse. You want to build your art brand in a way that feels fulfilling and magical to you, right? You don't want to create just another job for yourself. So it's very important to me at everything that I do to make sure that I am putting my fulfillment, my happiness in my creative practice ahead of my business at every single step of the way. Because I believe that business and money will just naturally be rewarded to you if you create something that you truly believe in. At the end of the day, there are so many people out here in this world that are just creating something to get something, and consumers are smart. They can sniff that out. So in turn, it's very important to create work that you only 110% believe in, because authenticity and transparency is going to be the unique gold mine nowadays. It's going to be that thing that not a lot of people are creating anymore, because we can often feel intimidated by how much competition or whatever there is out there in the world for your creative practices right now. And that's a whole other topic, because I honestly don't believe there's as much competition as people think there is. I think that you can get in your head about there's too many people, too much going on, I will just be another voice in the noise that no one can hear. But very quickly, I want to offer you the perspective that if you see other people succeeding where you want to succeed, that is not evidence that it can't happen for you. It is evidence that there's already an audience for the work that you want to make. This is proof that you can do it. This is not proof that, oh, it's too saturated, oh, there's not room for me. No, the world is so much bigger, so much bigger than you could ever imagine. And it actually takes so many, like, it doesn't actually take all that much. It doesn't take too many yeses to get you into a comfortable creative life. That's something that I had to learn. I originally thought, like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to be chasing something forever. And that's just not true, because it actually takes just a handful of, yes, I love it, I like it, I'll take what you have to offer, just a little bit of that, just a little teeny tiny handful of that, and suddenly you're comfortable. So I really want to offer you that perspective. But back to the video about branding. The best nuggets of gold in your art practice comes when you are least expecting it. And it comes when you are most open. Because we are in the practice of translating the world, of being open. It's naturally occurring for you to find that and stumble across that when you allow yourself to be open. I think that if you try to create something very intentionally, that it ends up coming from your ego about what you think others want, rather than what you actually want to do, what you actually want to create. And what you actually want to create is going to be what carries you farther. There are a lot of very creative people in this world who believe, rightfully so, I would say, that their creativity comes not from themselves, but through another force. There's actually this whole concept back in the ancient Greek time, and it was the concept of the genius. And essentially what a genius was to them was another separate being that used artists to speak through. It's actually such an interesting concept too, because of this concept of the genius speaking through artists. The artist was not responsible for the work, the genius was. And so if you created bad art, that's okay, you just had a bad genius. Or if you created really, really great art, it means you should not be too much of an ego, too proud of it, because it wasn't you that made it, it was your genius. And there's a lot of people, a lot of artists in the world that say, I don't think my artwork comes from me, it comes through me. I wonder if I will be able to find this quote, but I remember reading it one time, and it was the thought of creativity coming to you like a tornado barreling through the wind, barreling through you, and if you don't get to work fast enough, if you don't get your pen to paper, it'll just pass you by, and then it'll find someone else to be created through. And that's such an interesting concept. I don't know if I fully believe the idea that it'll just pass you by, because one of my beliefs is good ideas will always come back to you, you know? So, but it's just an interesting concept of this force coming through, using you as an outlet, and then going on past. So I got off on a little bit of a tangent. Where was I? Oh yes, for me, the most amount of friction that can come in your creative practice is trying to make what you think other people want, not what you actually want to make. So there's a difference between creating what you know other people are interested in versus what you think other people will like. What I notice for myself is when I create things I think other people will like, it often comes from a place of like, it's almost like you're trying to please the critics in your life. Like everyone who has ever said something bad about your work, it's like you're thinking about them and you're saying, oh, well, they liked this, that means I have to make this. And it's sort of like you're denying the part of yourself that you should be fulfilling. Like if I want to make cute, cozy artwork, but everyone always tells me I don't take myself seriously enough, and I'm starting to feel a little bit of like insecurity around that subject, I might think to myself, oh, well, people just want to see serious work. And I might put what I really want to do on the side and make only serious work. The reason why this falls so flat is because there are so many artists in the world doing so much kinds of work. And there's no way that you as, like, if I'm talking about myself, there's no way that I as someone who is whimsical and playful can create serious work better than someone who loves to make serious work. I have to make what I love to make, and that's how I'm going to succeed in my little corner of the universe. The most important question in what kind of art should I make isn't what other people want to see, but rather, why are you the one to make it? Why am I the one to make my small joys? You know, like why not make something else? And it's because of all of my lived life experiences, my tastes, my ambitions, and my desires. And you will also have a little pocket of you in the universe too. And it's important not to try to get caught up with, oh, well, other people just want to see this other thing, because that's not true. There's so much work in the world that if you try to make something that someone else is doing because you think that other people value that, and a lot of times that comes because a lot of voices in your corner are saying, no, that other thing's pretty valuable, you got to make that other thing. You just have to listen to the beat of your own drum, and you have to say, I can go the farthest where I am the most interested, where I find the most desire. And it's in locking in to that desire and going all in there where you are going to find the most success. There was a quote from one of my friends the other day, and she said that one time she was at a critique or some sort of artsy critique, that kind of thing, and her professor said, oh my gosh, I hate it, make me hate it more. What a funny concept, right? But what he was saying was, I can see you doing something here. It's not for me, but you need to go in harder. It's not for me, but that doesn't mean it's not for someone. You're gonna get much better results from your art when you are going 110% in. You never want to create something half-heartedly and then decide, oh, well, what if no one likes this? And then go somewhere else. You want to create from your inner compass, from what lights you the most up, and then just go in that one direction 110%. It is too warm in here, I'm gonna have to change. Alrighty, one outfit change later. So some things that I would ask myself if I was trying to form my brand again. I like to break it up into a couple things like subject matter, color, feeling. Feeling is probably going to be the most important thing. Like for instance, for my YouTube channel, whenever I started really starting to get a hold on what I was doing on YouTube, it was when I asked myself one question, and it was, what do I want someone to feel after they leave my video? After they come on here, they spend some time with me and then they leave. What do I want them to feel? And for me, that was a feeling of empowerment, this feeling of I can do this feeling of I just spent some time chatting and hang out with a friend. You know, like that was very intentional on my part. And so every single video that I did, I asked myself, what do I want them to feel? Empowerment, I'm with a friend. And so whenever you are going out there for your own art business, it might be helpful for you to ask yourself, what do I want someone to feel walking away from my artwork? And then create work with that in mind. Something that I think is very important early on in your journey too, because this comment's asking about what to post on social media. I am of the firm belief that like social media can be such a smoke and mirrors. It can be such a liar sometimes. Like you can be really fixated on looking at the likes and the comments and the follows that you forget behind each of those numbers is a real breathing living human being with wants and desires and dreams. It's often hard to get genuine feedback from social media because of all the noise and because people often get on social media to be distracted, not to connect. And so one of my favorite ways to really connect with people, YouTube is a great way to do it as well, but one of my favorite ways is to go to art markets. And I know that that can be tricky or hard because, you know, it's a little bit being out there in the elements, a little bit being out there in the weather, but there's nothing that will give you better results or quicker results than being at an art market, because not only whenever you're on social media, you see likes that come in, you see comments occasionally, but what you don't see is someone that looks at one piece a little bit longer than another. You don't see when someone says, oh my gosh, that's so cute, and then they tell their friend about it sitting next to them. There are so many elements of connection that you miss through the screen. And so I really like to use social media for myself as just a means of reporting what I'm doing in my real life. Because if I try to use social media for this is how I'm building my brand, it just will not feel good to me because I will constantly be looking at the numbers like, oh my gosh, did I get enough likes on this post? Like, shut up. No one cares about your likes. Oh my gosh, it's just such a silly thing to get preoccupied with, social media is. So I really like to try to build my creative life outside of social media and allow social media to be the place where I report back about my real life stuff going on. But overall, I'm hoping that the message you get from this video is to create freely and to let your brand emerge when it's ready. Always go back to your values, to create work that aligns with those values, to try to be a little bit aware of when you're creating in response to other people's criticism, other people's noise and voices, and when you're creating from genuine desire on your part, because for me that's going to be the most important thing. Because if you start creating from their perspective, what you think they want to see, that's not going to last. It's just not going to last you, because you're going to eventually feel burnt out, unfulfilled, unhappy with the work that you're making. It's more important to just create work that you love. And honestly, like the concept of, well, what if it just never happens is a silly concept to me, because I'm going to be an artist all my life. So I am going to be an open invitation for people to see my art all my life. And the only difference between you and someone that's already made it is the person that's already made it has made it, as if that's a concept that's separate from you, right? But the person that's already made it is someone that just never gave up. I was talking to someone one time and they were like, oh, well, it's hard to know if that'll happen for you or not, or if you'll always be waiting. And the only way to know if it'll happen for you is to just be one of those people that never gives up on it. How can I make it the most likely thing in the world that this is just something that's going to happen for me? And another quote that I read earlier this week from Atomic Habits, it's a book. I've been wanting to get it on audiobook because I tend to read faster on audiobooks when it comes to the self-helpy kinds of stuff. But it had a quote in it that said, your trajectory is more important than your results. And that was a very, very helpful quote for me when I'm working on my art business. Sometimes it's easy to feel like, oh, I advertised a sale and no one came to it, or oh, I went to this one art market, I didn't get the results that I wanted. But then you have to think to yourself, what is your trajectory? If you are an archer with your bow and arrow and you sling your arrow at the target, are you going to be upset and crushed if it doesn't hit the center of the target? Or are you going to be looking at it with a calculated eye, like, oh, I didn't hit the center. Should I be pulling back farther? Should I pull back less? Is my string tight enough? Are the weights on my, you look at it with the eye of someone who's going to make the target eventually. And I don't know why we don't see our own ambitions and dreams the same way. We often see ambitions and dreams as something that's handed to other people or handed out in the world. We don't see it as something that's built brick by brick every single day, and that's honestly what this is. If you're building something that is going to be your home to live in for the rest of your life, because that's how I see my art business, is going to be my own little home to live in for the rest of my life, of course it's going to take time. And we need to normalize slow growth, normalize how long that this is going to take, not as a trek to be followed in like grueling weather, but rather a fun journey to walk along, to be able to view this beautiful rose field or this beautiful little wilderness and to say, how fun would it be to explore this world and find myself in a garden at the end of it. Here's to building your garden. As always, spending any amount of time here on this channel with me is a gift. I really do consider it a gift, and for that, this humble artist says thank you. Oh, also, I have this cool thing called Art Print Fridays. So on my website, every single Friday, art prints are buy one, get one half off. So if you like kitty cats and books and cute little cozy kinds of interior, Fridays is the time to do it. I upload every Friday, so I mean, if you're watching this video at the time it's uploaded, buy one, get one prints. Yeah! Anyway, I will see you next time. Kazzo, you are driving me crazy. Honestly, this would be fixed if I kept my desk like free of trash and stuff. That requires a level of discipline I do not yet have. I genuinely can't remember what I was saying. Well, let's hope it wasn't important.